Been asked that a lot lately. You know, I think Snit's still our manager, so let's put that out there first and foremost. But the fact of the matter is, content with life away from the game. I got my foot in the door just enough with the Braves from a hitting standpoint, being a consultant, being a third set of eyes for some of these hitters, and I'm still chasing.
Here he comes, perhaps for the last time in regular season play, Chipper Jones, the pinch hit.
I've played with a lot of great players. I've played with some Hall of Famers and been very lucky to be blessed to be drafted into this organization. I was born into this organization. I've grown up in this organization, and hopefully I'll retire and move on in this organization.
People throw around "he's the GOAT" all the time in baseball. But somehow, when that conversation gets loud, Chipper Jones gets left out. It is crazy. Fans argue for shortstops and catchers and center fielders. They forget the guy who quietly did something almost nobody else in the history of this sport has ever done. But here's the thing. When the legends who actually played with him and against him speak, they all say the same thing. Nobody was like Chipper Jones. Nobody. I am Mason, and this is Baseball Icons. So what did the best players in baseball actually see that fans still miss? Because these are not just casual fans giving opinions. These are Hall of Famers, World Series champions, guys who faced the best pitchers on the planet every single night. And when they talk about Chipper, they get serious fast. If you are already feeling why people call him the GOAT, hit the hype button right now and hype this video so more baseball fans can see what these legends had to say. Now, let us get into it, starting with number 9 and working all the way down to number 1. Number 9. Mike Piazza said Chipper Jones was a nightmare for opposing managers. Not just a tough out, not just a good hitter, a full nightmare. And Piazza knew greatness because he was one of the greatest offensive catchers who ever lived. He saw elite hitters every single day. He watched them from behind the plate, up close, in the most important moments of the biggest games. So when Piazza called Chipper the most complete offensive force of their generation, that was not a casual compliment. That was a trained, professional observer giving his honest verdict after years of direct competition. Here is what made Chipper so hard to deal with. He could do everything. He could hit for average. He could hit for power. He could run the bases. Managers could not just pick one thing to stop because there was no one thing. They had to worry about all of it at the same time. When they pitched around him, he took the walk and put himself in position to score. When they challenged him, he drove the ball to the gaps or over the fence. When they thought they had him, he found a way. There was no safe option, and Chipper made them pay no matter what they chose. The stolen base numbers tell part of this story. Chipper stole 150 bases in his career. That sounds like a nice number, but the part that is truly wild is this. He stole at least one base in every single season of his 19-year career. Every season, including when he was 40 years old playing on 2 surgically repaired knees. Think about what that means. His legs were held together by medical procedures. He could barely do some of the things younger players do without thinking, and he was still taking bases when the moment called for it. Most players his age were barely running out ground balls. Chipper was still a threat on the bases. Still forcing the defense to account for him. Still doing the little things that add up to wins. Piazza and Chipper had a real rivalry going back to the 1990s. They were the faces of National League East baseball together. Their careers were intertwined in a way that made every matchup feel important. Both of them showed up in Atlanta against the Braves, in New York against the Mets, in game after game where it felt like the whole division was watching. A 1994 Pinnacle trading card actually put both of them on the same card together, calling them the new generation. That card became a collector's item because those two players defined what National League offense looked like for an entire decade. But their paths to the big leagues could not have been more different. Chipper was the first overall pick in the 1990 draft. He was the consensus best player available. Piazza was picked in the 62nd round in 1988 as a personal favor from the Dodgers manager to his family. One guy came in as the chosen one. The other scratched and clawed just to earn a spot on a roster. And yet, they both became Hall of Famers. That contrast makes Piazza's respect for Chipper even more meaningful. He knew what it took to reach that level, and he still said Chipper was the most complete player he ever shared an era with. Number 8. Mariano Rivera. Let that name sit for a moment. The greatest closer in the history of baseball. A man who threw one pitch, one cut fastball, and used it to destroy the best hitters in the world for over a decade. That pitch broke bats. It did not just miss barrels. It physically snapped wooden bats in half. Left-handed hitters would set up for a pitch that looked like it was coming to them, and then it would cut in sharply at the last moment and jam their hands completely. It made left-handed hitters look completely lost. It had the kind of late movement that was almost impossible to square up, no matter how many times you saw it. Rivera was so dominant that for most of his career, facing him felt less like a baseball at-bat and more like a math problem with no solution. And yet, Rivera admitted that Chipper Jones was one of the toughest outs of his entire career. Think about how rare that is. Rivera faced thousands of hitters across his career. He dominated World Series games, playoff matchups, late-season pressure situations where everything was on the line. He is the all-time leader in career saves. He was so good that when he was announced as a Hall of Famer, he became the first player ever voted in unanimously by every single voter. For a pitcher that dominant to call any hitter truly tough means that hitter was doing something completely different from everyone else. What was Chipper doing differently? He refused to give away at-bats. That sounds simple, but it is actually incredibly rare. Most hitters, even great ones, will get impatient against a pitcher like Rivera. They will chase a cutter that breaks just off the plate. They will swing at something slightly outside because it looks hittable for half a second. Chipper would not do that. He had the discipline and the patience to wait for a pitch he could actually damage. He would not swing at a pitch he could not drive. He forced Rivera to throw strikes. And throwing strikes to Chipper Jones was extremely dangerous. Rivera had to be perfect to get Chipper out. Not just good, not just sharp, perfect. Every pitch had to be exactly where he wanted it. If Rivera made a mistake, Chipper was going to make him pay for it. And when a hitter forces the greatest closer who ever lived to be perfect every single time, that tells you everything you need to know about that hitter's mental approach and plate discipline. The 1999 World Series showed this quality in a big moment. In Game 1, Chipper stepped in against Orlando Hernandez, known as El Duque, one of the most unique and dangerous postseason pitchers of that era. Hernandez had a delivery that was nearly impossible to track. His arm angle was different, his timing was different, everything about him was designed to throw off a hitter's rhythm. Chipper homered off him anyway, in the World Series, on the biggest stage in the sport, calm as ever, doing damage against elite pitching. That was Chipper Jones in October. That was the kind of player these legends were talking about. Number 7. Tony Gwynn was one of the purest contact hitters in the history of baseball. He hit above 300 in almost every season of his career. He won 8 batting titles. He once hit 394 in a season and came close to hitting 400. He struck out so rarely that in the final 12 seasons of his career, his total strikeout count was lower than what some modern players put up in a single season. Gwynn was not just good at making contact, he was almost supernaturally gifted at it. So when Gwynn gave credit to another hitter for their plate discipline, it carried enormous weight. He was the expert on this specific skill. Gwynn respected Chipper's ability to walk more than he struck out, while still hitting for massive power. That combination almost does not make sense when you say it out loud. Usually, hitters who walk a lot are patient slap hitters. They lay off bad pitches because they are not trying to do damage. They want to get on base and let the big guys behind them drive them in. And hitters who hit 30 or 40 home runs are aggressive. They expand their zone slightly. They swing at pitches that are near the zone because that aggression is part of what generates their power. Chipper did both at the same time, and he did it at an elite level for his entire career. Over his career, Chipper walked 1,512 times and struck out only 1,409 times. He walked more than he struck out. Read that sentence again. For a power hitter with 468 home runs, that is almost impossible to believe. Most sluggers in that home run range strike out 1,600, 1,700, or even 2,000 times across their careers. Chipper struck out fewer times than he walked, while also hitting nearly 470 home runs. That combination is something the game has almost never seen. That puts him in a club of 9 players in the entire history of Major League Baseball. 9. That is the full list of players who hit over 400 home runs, kept a career batting average above 300, and never struck out more than 110 times in a single season. Every name on that list is legendary, and Chipper Jones belongs with all of them. Gwynn also pointed to something bigger than just the numbers. This was all happening during the steroid era. The 1990s and early 2000s were a time when a lot of players were getting bigger, hitting the ball harder and further, and putting up numbers that did not always add up. Power numbers jumped all across the league. Home run records were broken and then broken again. there was a cloud over the sport. Gwynn emphasized that Chipper's discipline and production stood apart because it was clean. His numbers were real. His swing was real. His results were earned the right way. And they still held up against everyone else in the game, even against those who were playing with an artificial advantage. That is a remarkable thing to be able to say. Number 6. Ken Griffey Jr. is considered by many to be the most naturally gifted hitter of his generation. His swing was so smooth and so perfect that coaches used it as a teaching model. His mechanics looked effortless. He was a first overall pick in 1987 and became one of the most beloved players the game has ever seen. When Griffey talked about Chipper's swing, he was speaking from the highest possible level of expertise. And what he said was this: Chipper's mechanics were so repeatable, so clean, that he rarely went through the long slumps that affected other star hitters. Most great players have stretches where something goes wrong. Their timing is off, their hands drop, their front shoulder flies open. Those slumps can last weeks. They can cost a team real games. Chipper barely had them because his swing was built to last. That swing was developed early in his life. His father, Larry Wayne Jones Sr., worked with him constantly. One problem they identified early was that Chipper had a habit of stepping in the bucket as a right-handed hitter. Stepping in the bucket means your front foot drifts away from the plate when you swing. It kills your ability to cover the outside part of the zone. It drains your power. So his father created a solution called a toe tap mechanism. Instead of a full stride, Chipper would lift and tap his front toe lightly, keeping his weight centered, preserving his balance, and allowing him to transfer his weight perfectly at contact. That small adjustment made his swing repeatable from both sides of the plate for nearly 2 decades. Now here is a piece of history that almost did not happen. When the Atlanta Braves were preparing for the 1990 draft, their scouts had spent a lot of time focused on a pitcher named Todd Van Poppel. Van Poppel was the consensus top pitching prospect, and a lot of teams were looking at him. But the Braves scouting director, Paul Snyder, watched Chipper Jones and pushed hard to change the plan. He persuaded Bobby Cox to take the high school shortstop from Florida instead. That decision changed the entire history of the Atlanta Braves, and it gave us one of the most complete careers in baseball history. Griffey and Chipper share something that almost no one else in baseball can claim. They are the only 2 first overall picks ever elected to the Hall of Fame. Out of every #1 pick in the draft's history, only 2 became Hall of Famers, and Chipper Jones is one of them. Number 5. Cal Ripken Jr. is the Iron Man of baseball. He played 2,132 consecutive games without missing a single one. He showed up every single day, no matter what, for years on end. Soreness, fatigue, personal struggles, it did not matter. He showed up. He is the gold standard for durability and commitment in professional sports. So when Ripken praised Chipper for his longevity and loyalty, that was not a small thing. That was one franchise legend recognizing another at the highest possible level. Ripken viewed Chipper as the gold standard for what a franchise player should be. 19 years with one organization, one team, one city, one jersey. In an era where players moved around constantly for bigger contracts and better opportunities, Chipper stayed. He could have gone somewhere else when he was in his prime. He could have chased a bigger market, a deeper lineup, a better shot at multiple rings. He chose the Braves every single time. He committed to Atlanta and gave that city everything he had until the very last day. But loyalty was only part of what Ripken admired. Chipper also showed a genuine willingness to sacrifice his personal comfort for the team's success. In 2002 and 2003, the Braves wanted to bring in Vinny Castilla at third base. Chipper had played his entire professional career in the infield. Third base was his position. It was his identity on the field. But the team needed him to move, so he moved to left field without making it a controversy. He learned a new position mid-career to make room for someone else. That is not something superstar players typically agree to without a fight. Chipper did it because the team came first. He also restructured his contracts multiple times to give the Braves more financial flexibility. One of those restructured deals helped general manager John Sherholtz bring in starting pitcher Tim Hudson, a move that extended the team's ability to compete. Chipper took less money than he was worth so his team could win more games. For a player of his caliber, that kind of selflessness is extremely rare. Ripken and Chipper actually share a place in baseball card history because of their shared status as franchise icons. A 1998 Pinnacle trading card put both of them on the same card under the label "Stand Up Guys." That label was earned. Both men built careers entirely dedicated to one city, one uniform, and one mission. And both became the face of their franchises for a full generation of fans. Number 4. John Smoltz is one of the most analytically sharp pitching minds the game has ever produced. He won a Cy Young Award. He was dominant as both a starter and a closer. After his playing career, he became a lead analyst for major television networks, including Fox Sports and MLB Network. He studied swing mechanics, pitcher tendencies, and the overall strategy of the game at an exceptionally deep level. When Smoltz talks about hitting technique and switch hitting balance, he is not guessing. He is drawing on decades of watching hitters from the mound and analyzing them on television. So his assessment of Chipper as a switch hitter carries real technical weight that most opinions simply do not have. Smoltz said that Chipper Jones was the only player he had ever seen who looked like a natural Hall of Fame hitter from both the left and right sides of the plate. Not just competent from both sides, not just usable from both sides, a natural Hall of Famer from both sides. That means 2 completely elite hitters sharing one body. That is a remarkable thing to say about any player, and Smoltz meant every word of it. The numbers back this up completely. From the left side against right-handed pitching, Chipper hit 303 with an on-base percentage of 405, a slugging percentage of 541, and an OPS of 947. He hit 361 home runs from that side. From the right side against left-handed pitching, he hit 304 with an on-base percentage of 391, a slugging percentage of 498, and an OPS of 889. He hit 107 home runs from that side. To understand how rare those splits are, think about this. Most switch hitters have a dramatically stronger side. They are good from one side and just okay from the other. Chipper was elite from the left side and still very good from the right. The gap between his two sides was tiny, and that tiny gap changed everything for opposing managers. When a tough left-handed reliever came in from the bullpen, most teams would immediately look for a right-handed hitter to exploit the matchup. Against Chipper, that strategy did not work. He was dangerous from the right side, too. Managers could not use standard bullpen specialization to neutralize him. They could not tilt the matchup in their favor by carefully choosing who pitched to him, because he was ready to punish them no matter who walked out of the bullpen. He effectively killed one of the most powerful strategic tools in modern baseball, just by being equally dangerous from both sides of the plate. Now, there was a moment in 2007 where the intensity between Smoltz and Chipper became very public. Smoltz made some comments publicly about the team's lineup availability. Chipper was dealing with a groin injury and had not been playing. He took the comments personally, and it led to a team meeting where manager Bobby Cox stepped in to mediate. The whole situation ended up revealing something important about who Chipper was as a person and a competitor. He hated sitting out. He hated the idea of anyone questioning his toughness or his willingness to play through pain. He had dealt with serious knee issues throughout his career. His identity was built around showing up, grinding, and being available. That fire and that pride were part of what made him so hard to beat for so long. Later in their lives, that same intensity became the foundation of a deep and lasting friendship, with Chipper and Glavine even roasting Smoltz on a television broadcast together. Number 3. Tom Glavine won over 300 games in his career. He is one of the best left-handed pitchers in the history of the sport. He won the 1995 World Series. He is a Hall of Famer who understood pressure and big moments better than almost anyone. And he said that nobody wanted to be at the plate in the bottom of the 9th inning more than Chipper Jones. That is the clutch gene. You either have it or you do not. Some great players get tight when the game is on the line. Their mechanics change slightly. Their swing gets a little too eager. Their patience disappears. Not Chipper. Glavine said he was the ultimate big game player, someone who loved the pressure and performed better when it was highest. The proof of this is everywhere in Chipper's career. Start with the very beginning. His first career home run came on May 9th, 1995. His team was tied 2-2 in the top of the 9th inning at Shea Stadium. Chipper hit a solo home run off Josias Manzanillo to win the game 3-2. His first home run ever came in the 9th inning of a close game. That is how his story started. His last home run as a professional came on September 2nd, 2012. He was 40 years old. His team was down by multiple runs. He came to the plate in the bottom of the 9th against Philadelphia Phillies closer Jonathan Papelbon, one of the best closers in baseball. Chipper hit a 3-run walk-off home run to cap a 5-run comeback and win the game 8-7. His last home run ever also came in the 9th inning of a close game. His story ended exactly how it started. Between those two moments, Chipper collected 9 walk-off home runs, which is the franchise record for the Atlanta Braves. And his postseason debut set the tone for everything that followed. In Game 1 of the 1995 National League Division Series against the Colorado Rockies at Coors Field, he hit 2 home runs, including the game winner in the top of the 9th, in his first postseason game. And throughout that entire 1995 championship run, he hit 364 with 3 home runs over 14 games. That 1995 World Series is where the legend truly took shape. In Game 6, the deciding game, Tom Glavine threw a historic 1-0 combined one-hitter. The Braves needed to score. They needed hits. In that pressure-packed game, only 2 Braves collected multiple hits. One was David Justice. The other was Chipper Jones. The team won its only World Series championship in Atlanta, and Chipper was right there in the middle of it. Number 2. Greg Maddux is widely considered the most cerebral pitcher in the history of baseball. He could put a fastball wherever he wanted, to within an inch of his target, consistently, game after game. He made hitters look foolish with pitches they saw coming and still could not hit. He won 4 straight Cy Young Awards. He struck out over 3,000 batters in his career, while walking fewer than 1,000. His command was so precise and so deliberate that baseball people still talk about it decades later. Maddux did not overpower anyone. He simply outthought them, outprepared them, and out-executed them every single time. Maddux said that Chipper's ability to anticipate pitches was second to none. That is high praise from a man who built his entire legacy on outthinking hitters. Chipper did not just react to the ball coming out of the pitcher's hand. He thought ahead. He studied how pitchers worked in different counts, in different situations, with different runners on base. He recognized patterns in pitch sequencing. He knew what was likely coming based on the situation, the count, the inning, and the score. He played chess at the plate, while most hitters were playing checkers. And against the best pitching staff in baseball, that level of preparation set him apart from everyone else. This was a deep mutual respect between 2 elite minds. Maddux, who could not be easily fooled by hitters, saw in Chipper a hitter who could not easily be fooled by pitchers. They were intellectual equals in the way they approached the game. That kind of mutual recognition between 2 all-time greats is extremely rare and speaks to how seriously Maddux took Chipper's ability to think at the plate. There is a story that shows exactly how Maddux thought about Chipper's defensive and cognitive abilities together. During a regular season game, the Braves were in a key situation, facing hitter Luis Gonzalez. Manager Bobby Cox and pitching coach Leo Mazzone suggested walking Gonzalez intentionally to get to the next hitter. Maddux said no. He refused the intentional walk flat out. Instead, he told them he could get a pop-up to Chipper at third base in exactly 2 pitches. Not roughly, not probably, exactly 2 pitches. He threw a changeup down and away. Then he threw a cutter on the inner half. The pop-up went down the left field line, and Chipper caught it to end the inning, exactly as Maddux had said it would happen. That story says as much about Chipper's defensive awareness and positioning as it does about Maddux's pitching genius. Both men were always a step ahead. Their relationship also had a lighter side. Maddux was famous in the clubhouse for being a devious prankster. One story that Chipper loved to tell involved a round of golf the teammates played together. After the round, Maddux wiped his shin with a soiled sanitary sock and then casually tossed it back into the equipment bin. The result was a streak left on Chipper's leg that became a legendary clubhouse story ever after. Maddux was deadly serious on the mound and completely unpredictable off it. That combination of sharp professional focus and loose, mischievous energy in the clubhouse made him one of the most unique teammates Chipper ever had. And their bond, built on mutual respect and shared humor, is still talked about today. Number 1. Derek Jeter is one of the most celebrated players in baseball history. He won 5 World Series championships. He played 20 seasons for the New York Yankees. He was the captain of the most storied franchise in professional sports. He gave clutch performances in October so consistently that the city of New York treated him like royalty. He was the face of the most famous team in sports for 2 full decades. His number is retired, his plaque is in Cooperstown. And when he was elected to the Hall of Fame, he came very close to matching the unanimous vote that Rivera had received a year earlier. So when Jeter looked at Chipper Jones and identified consistency as his single defining trait, it carried enormous meaning. Because Jeter understood what sustained greatness actually looked like. Jeter said that most star players have great peaks followed by significant drops. They have a few seasons where they are truly dominant, and then they start coming back to earth. Injuries accumulate, the game catches up to them, their numbers decline. Chipper did not follow that pattern. He stayed at a high level of offensive production for nearly 2 full decades, which Jeter considered one of the most difficult things a professional hitter could ever do. Maintaining a career batting average of 300 from both sides of the plate requires mechanical discipline and physical dedication that very few players have ever managed. Jeter knew how hard it was to sustain that kind of production year after year. And he said Chipper made it look more consistent than anyone else he had ever observed. But here is where the numbers get interesting. Jeter is more famous than Chipper in terms of name recognition. Jeter played in New York. Jeter was on national television constantly. Jeter won more rings. When casual fans list great players from that era, Jeter's name usually comes up first. But when you compare the two players by pure offensive efficiency, the gap is significant, and it goes in Chipper's favor. Chipper hit 303 for his career. Jeter hit 310. So Jeter has the slight edge in batting average. But look at what happens beyond that. Chipper's on-base percentage was 401. Jeter's was 377. Chipper's slugging percentage was 529. Jeter's was 440. Chipper's OPS Plus, which adjusts for the era and ballpark to show how much better than average a hitter was, came in at 141. Jeter's was 115. That means Chipper was 41% better than the average hitter across his entire career. Jeter was 15% better than average. Chipper's walk rate was 14.2% per plate appearance. Jeter's was 8.6%. Chipper's strikeout rate was 13.3%. Jeter's was actually higher at 14.6%. And Chipper hit 468 home runs, compared to Jeter's 260. Then there is the defensive side. Jeter played shortstop, which is considered a more demanding position than third base. That is true, but advanced metrics show that Jeter's range at shortstop was historically poor. His career defensive WAR was negative 13.6. That means his defense actually cost his teams wins over the course of his career. Chipper's defensive WAR was negative 2.0. He was roughly average on defense. The difference there is enormous, because Chipper's elite offense translated almost entirely into wins for the Atlanta Braves, while Jeter's defense was quietly canceling out a portion of what he contributed with his bat. When you measure both players by wins above replacement per 162 games, which is the best way to compare players who played different numbers of seasons, Chipper comes out ahead there too. He averaged 5.73 wins per 162 games. Jeter averaged 4.95. None of this takes away from what Jeter accomplished. 5 championships, a legendary career, and a first-ballot Hall of Fame election. He is one of the all-time greats, no question. But Jeter himself recognized that Chipper was operating at a different level offensively. He did not begrudge that. He acknowledged it openly and honestly. That kind of self-awareness from one of the most decorated players in baseball history. That willingness to step back from his own legacy and give real credit where it was truly due is exactly why Jeter's assessment of Chipper carries so much weight. The greatest players always know who the other great players are. And Jeter knew. Now let us stack everything together. 9 Hall of Famers, 9 different angles, and they all point to the same conclusion. Mike Piazza said he was the most complete offensive force of their generation, a player who could beat you in every single way a baseball player can beat you. Mariano Rivera said he was one of the toughest outs he ever faced, a hitter who never gave an at-bat away and forced the best closer in history to be perfect on every single pitch. Tony Gwynn pointed to the plate discipline, the power, and the cleanliness of his production during an era when nothing was clean. Ken Griffey Jr. saw a swing so mechanically perfect, it barely broke down across an entire career. Cal Ripken Jr. recognized the loyalty and selflessness of a true franchise player who took less money and changed positions just to help his team win. John Smoltz analyzed the switch-hitting symmetry and called him a natural Hall of Famer from both sides of the plate, like 2 elite hitters living in one body. Tom Glavine named him the ultimate big-game player, a man who was literally built for 9th innings and championship moments. Greg Maddux called him his intellectual equal at the plate, the only active hitter he respected as much as he respected himself on the mound. And Derek Jeter said his consistency across nearly 2 decades was one of the hardest things he had ever seen any hitter achieve. Now add the numbers on top of all of that. the highest career OPS ever recorded by a third baseman with at least 5,000 plate appearances. Higher than Mike Schmidt, who many people consider the greatest third baseman who ever played. Chipper sits above him in that all-time efficiency ranking. He won the National League batting title at age 36, hitting .364 in the 2008 season. That is not a young man finding his stride. That is a 36-year-old demonstrating that his approach and his mechanics still worked better than almost everyone else in the game. He was a first overall pick who became a Hall of Famer alongside only one other player in the entire history of the draft. He holds the Atlanta Braves franchise record with 9 walk-off home runs. He walked more than he struck out while hitting nearly 470 home runs. He stole at least one base in every season of his career, including at age 40 on 2 surgically repaired knees. He restructured contracts to give his team room to improve. He moved positions mid-career without complaining so someone else could play his spot. He played 19 seasons with one team, and he never once let them down when the moment was biggest. Everything about his career was built for winning. Everything was about the team and the game and doing the right thing at the right time. He did not need headlines. He did not need the New York media machine or a stadium full of the brightest spotlights in sports. He just needed a baseball field and a chance to compete. And every single time he got that chance, he delivered. So why is his name not always the first one people say when they talk about the greatest hitters of his era? That is a completely fair question. Part of it is market size. Atlanta is not New York or Los Angeles. Games that happen in smaller media markets do not get amplified the same way. Part of it is rings. One World Series championship does not burn into the memory the same way that 5 do. And part of it is simply how he carried himself. Chipper never needed the spotlight to keep burning. He never chased the camera or the conversation. He just kept producing, kept showing up, kept dominating year after year after year, quietly, completely, constantly. But the legends know. The guys who faced him in October, who stood across the diamond from him in the most important games of the season, who shared a clubhouse with him and studied his preparation up close, they all say the exact same thing. He was better than people realize. He was built differently from a talent standpoint, a mental standpoint, and a character standpoint. He was the kind of player who only comes along once every few decades, and he did it the right way, from start to finish. From his first home run in the 9th inning of a tie game as a rookie, to his last home run in the 9th inning of a comeback win as a 40-year-old. For almost 20 years in one city with one team. That is what symmetrical greatness looks like. That is Chipper Jones. A player who was elite at the plate from both sides. Elite in the clutch, elite in his preparation, and elite in the way he carried himself as a franchise cornerstone for nearly 2 decades. Not many players in the history of this sport can claim all of that at once. Chipper Jones can, and now you know why. If this video helped you see something you did not see before, hit the like button right now and subscribe to Baseball Icons so you never miss another deep dive like this one. Every week, we break down the careers, the moments, and the legacy of the players who shaped this game. And drop a comment below telling us which Legends take hit you the hardest. Was it Rivera admitting Chipper forced him to be perfect on every pitch? Was it Maddux calling him his intellectual equal at the plate? Was it Gwynn pointing to the walks over strikeouts number as something almost no power hitter has done? Or was it Jeter, one of the most famous players in history, stepping back and giving Chipper his full credit without hesitation? Let us know. The comment section is open and we read every single one.